One of my favorite philosophical sayings is, "The truth is one. The sages speak of it by many names." I think that this is a really appropriate philosophical statement regarding the golf swing, because it would seem from looking at all the classic swings that I admire that they all share very common elements that should be teachable and readily available to everybody who plays the game of golf. But for some reason, these elements have been lost in a sea of poor instruction, in a sea of varying schools of thought in regards to the golf swing. They've been lost due to manufacturers making the game easier to swing the club badly and still play the game. It's a really complex problem, and it is my earnest desire to rectify this problem, and that's my main goal with my swing evolution. Originally, I wanted to just be able to play the game better, but once I started to realize that the classic swingers like Hogan, Nelson, Gary Player, Lee Trevino, once I realized that they had something very special happening, I realized there was a tremendous void in the game of golf in terms of instruction. I've developed a professional level mastery over the art of karate and the art of ballet. And in karate, you may study any one of a number of systems, but there's belt levels. It's usually white, yellow, green, purple, brown, black. It can be different in different systems, but there's an order that you go through. You don't start off with black belt level techniques. In ballet, the syllabus is 8 years long. It takes 8 years to learn how to dance ballet properly. At least that's the way it's been taught. And this is really, really important, because in the game of golf, you can pick up the game, buy a $400 driver and an $1,100 set of clubs, go to a golf course, and start slamming away. The driver swing's the most complicated part of the golf swing. It's the longest club and it's the most difficult to control. But people are starting out with black belt level equipment and they don't know how to use it. So you're going to be doomed unless you're lucky enough to be somebody, say for example Bubba Watson wasn't taught formally. He's been playing with scratch level players since he was 12 years old. So if you're a golf pro, very often you may learn the game by being around great players and being influenced by fantastic golfers. And you may not even know what your system is, but unconsciously you've gone through a system that has brought you to a professional level of the game of golf. But unfortunately, it's really hard to teach that if you aren't conscious of the steps that you went through to become a professional. This is where, for me, starting over again at the age of 40, it's been very, very interesting because I have broken it down piece by piece. Two of the favorite people that I like to look at on YouTube are Bradley Hughes, two-time Masters champion, and also Jeff Jones, who runs the Slice Fixer channel. Both of these gentlemen, by their mid-20s, were Bradley Hughes was a champion professional golfer, and Jeff Jones was certainly at a professional level. And they both lost their games because they took some lessons, they changed some things, and then they didn't know how to get back to where they were when they were playing their best golf. So they had to both deconstruct everything, and they've arrived at many of the same conclusions that I've arrived at. They're both way better golfers than I am, certainly, and there's a lot to learn from them. But I find it so fascinating that they both lost their way and then had to figure out how to get back there. So here we come back around to this problem. So today I want to talk about the claw and the twirl. Roger Dunn gave me one of the most important lessons that I had that set me on my way. When we took a couple lessons in the year 2010, he told me first that my head was going in front of the ball. In other words, I was sliding laterally in front of the ball. That was the major thing that he taught me. It was to stay behind the ball. But the second thing he told me that has really stuck with me was he said, when we were competing back in the 50s and 60s, when we saw somebody had this position right here, this is what I call the claw. When they had this position, we knew we were in trouble. And I believe what he was referring to is what Victor Rodriguez was just telling me about early squaring of the club face and setting that bow in the wrist. You can't get into the claw unless the wrist is bowed. I use this technique to be able to shoot 74, which was the big thrill of my swing evolution. But I would set it up here and I'd pretty much carry that through my whole swing, kind of like Lee Trevino does. He has that bow in the top of his wrist. But I didn't really hit the ball very far. So that's why I incorporated what Martin taught me soon thereafter, which was the twirl, which is what Hogan seems to have. This is black belt level stuff, by the way. But when you look at them, they roll it up and then they drop it. They drop it like this. One of the people I'm fascinated with is Calvin Pete. He twirls it up and then drops it, and that lays the club off behind you. Once the club's back there, you can't chop down and hit the ball. You'll completely miss the ball unless you turn your body. That's what all these great swingers have in common, is fantastic rotation. So this is what I want to go to the golf range today to work on, is really try and get a handle on the claw and the rotation and how that works into the swing. And hopefully I'll be able to work it completely into the twirl for maximum power. So that's the ultimate goal. And we'll see how it works. But I feel that I'm getting very close to being able to codify these elements into a teachable progression so that everybody's going to know this stuff and they're not going to be lost in the middle of the wilderness trying to figure out how to play this darn game. I believe honestly it can be mastered.